Welcome back to the podcast. It is Inside the Huddle here on Maple Grove Voice, and getting a chance now to chat all things high school wrestling here at Osseo Senior High with head coach David Ahmed. And you turn the corner, you blink, and it's done, the regular season. Before we get into talking about the three kids that qualified for the state tournament, let's kind of rewind a little bit and walk through the season and how it went and meet expectations and exceed expectation, all that good stuff. So how'd the season go?
At the beginning of the season, we kind of looked into things without injuries, and early season injuries kind of played a role for our entire team, and missing some key guys throughout the majority of the regular season, such as Aiden Wayne, Taylor Meisner, and then we also had the unexpected loss of Ilan Kazada. Kind of made the team portion really not be what we envisioned it before it started, yet as a whole, the guys really kind of stepped up to compete at a high level. We wrestled a pretty tough schedule for the most part. Started off the year with some great competition at our own tournament with Shakopee there, and got a champion out of Abraham Kamara and some numerous place winners. Also, just kind of going to that Rogers Royal Rumble over the holidays was also a pretty tough, big, large tournament where we had high place winners, had a second place again out of Kamara. And for a second-year wrestler, he kind of really did quite a great job pulling things together to build up for some of the losses, and also saw Jagger Shack step up as a ninth grader, and he exceeded expectations throughout the whole regular season as well, along with Jacob Meisner being an eighth grader. Last year he was, I want to say 12-7 on JV, and 30-match winner this year on varsity as an eighth grader at 160 pounds too. So those two guys really three made our entire team better than what we were really kind of thinking they would do. They stepped it up more than obviously our normal players. Adam Liner is always consistent, never really missed a beat, and getting him healthy after last season's mono was also huge.
Wrestling's an interesting sport because it's a team thing, but yet it's so individual inside the team thing. And so you talked a little bit about some of the kids who kind of jumped up and surprised you. When you're putting the game plan together on any given night, and you have the schedule that you do, and there's no real night to take off. What are you talking to the kids about? Because I know, having spent enough time around you, I know how competitive you are. I know it is all that stuff. I know from a coaching perspective. But when you're trying to put the whole game plan together, what does that look like? What does that sound like when you're talking to the kids?
Wrestling's an interesting beast when you're talking about a game plan, because there's only so many different things you can really game plan about in regards to a matchup for a specific duel. You can move a guy up a weight, and that's really about it. And if you move one guy up, then you're looking at moving the entire lineup up unless you have a hole. So sometimes that can even backfire on you. So we really kind of talk about our individual match goals for each kid, and really just looking to compete every single second we're on the mat. That's the main thing we talk to with our athletes about, is every second you're out there, you're going to compete and give everything you have in order to do whatever you can. We also talked about just not giving up bonus points, and getting bonus points when you can during those team events. Realistically, you can pencil it down on paper and have a pretty good idea of how most every wrestling duel that we're in is going to go. And we have to get a couple swing matches, and those are kind of the guys that you really try and get pumped up for those duels. Is the guys who are in the coin flip, that 50-50 match that can go either way. Those are really what makes or breaks a close duel. And ultimately, when I kind of look at our dual schedule, we really do want to compete against teams that are solid, because the second you start going into ones where you're guaranteed a win, then you're winning with 5 forfeits.
Right.
And as a whole, the kids really don't get much joy out of that. We had our big wins of the season, and we had some matches that we lost, and ultimately the ones we lost where we competed at a high level, and you could just kind of see the looks on their faces having more excitement out of those than a blowout win.
Right. So let's spin it forward now. Section meet, and 3 kids finish second, get a chance to qualify for the state tournament. It's kind of fun for me to look at it from an outsider's perspective, following the game enough, but yet not really following it. So you've got a guy in Adam Lanners who's been there, done that. You got a freshman in Jagger who is a young kid trying to figure the whole thing out. When you have a couple kids like that have such a difference in experience, I would assume this weekend when they're heading down to the Xcel Energy Center, they'll both look at things in completely different lenses, right?
Well, actually, all three of our guys are first-year state entrants.
Okay.
No one else has made it. Adam with the mono last year was kind of on his way to, and kind of didn't quite get her done in his match that would have got him there. So every single one of our three athletes is new to the Excel Center. I would say actually probably the one that's probably competed in the biggest tournaments throughout his life is probably our Jagger Shaka as a ninth grader.
Okay.
And he wrestles year-round, going to huge dual meet tournaments for Team Minnesota, and he's probably the one that will walk into that thing with the least awe factor out of the three.
That's interesting. Because you think about it from a freshman. I mean, you just think about it from an age level perspective, and you think about a kid, like Adam, who's seen big things, who's played in a section football game, and I think that's awesome. So when you look at your kids that are going, what strengths do they have walking in? What are they kind of looking at from an expectation? What does this week look like marching up to it?
Well, I mean, ultimately, every single match, no matter who you get, it's gonna be tough. We're gonna prepare to go in, wrestle our style, and give it the best we can. There's no gimmies. There's no easy way through, and ultimately, got to win some tight matches. And those first round ones are the biggest ones. So Adam has a huge first round match against Noel from Centennial, and hopefully we can get a win there and kind of move our way through the tournament. So, ultimately, backtracking back to the last question too. It isn't that the moment would be too big for any of them. I don't believe, because everyone's been wrestling, and once you get on a wrestling mat, it's pretty tough to let the outside gather you in for guys that have been wrestling for as long as all three of them have. All three of these guys have been wrestling for years.
So they got that part. The lights won't be too bright.
I don't believe so. I mean, sure, that first match could be a little bit nervous with that first 30, 40 seconds, but once that first 30, 40 seconds of a wrestling match is gone, you really drown out anything else that's out there. It's just you and the guy on the mat. There's no break to kind of look and hear the fans yelling and screaming like there is in a football or a basketball game. You're out there for 6 hard minutes, and the focus level required just to compete in a wrestling match is one of those things that kind of helps eliminate those outside noises. I mean, you can get into some really dangerous wrestling environments. Trying to wrestle in Carver Hawkeye is probably the toughest place to be, as those fans get wild. And you can kind of see how they can get some momentum building, but kind of a neutral environment at the state tournament. So,
when you have a chance to kind of collect your thoughts and think about how you've built this program up, what are you most proud of?
Definitely just getting our student body to really buy into the fact that wrestling is a fun event to go to, and you just kind of hear a different buzz from year 1 to year 3 about wrestling as a whole. People are excited for it. We're hearing everyone knows who made it to the state tournament now. Everyone's talking about wanting to see them, as to where that first year, our one state entrant, I couldn't tell you that half the student body even would have known or cared that he was there.
It takes a lot to bring down a Minnesota Vikings player, but when an injury occurs, a Twin Cities orthopedics physician is on the field and ready to assess the situation. TCO is the official sports medicine provider of the Minnesota Vikings and proud to be a part of the new home of the Minnesota Vikings in Eagan. Best yet, the community can see the same great doctors at one of our 40 clinic locations across the metro. Visit TCOMN.com to learn more. TCOMN.com.